Welcome to another episode of Inside Recreation. I'm your guest host for today, Monika Hammer, Communications and Public Outreach Manager here at Recreation, and I'm really excited about the great conversation that we're going to be having with some wonderful, remarkable figures in our community. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. So, Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, I'm Patricia Tyson, and I've lived in Lyttonsville as my community in West Silver Spring. And my father was born in Wheaton, Maryland, but when he married, he moved to D.C., he and my mom. And so I was born in D.C., but we moved back to the community he grew up in, which was Lyttonsville, just below Kensington. And so he had I should say just below Wheaton. We moved there when I was 4 years old and my sister was 2. And so I've been there ever since. And I did, I grew up there, which is a wonderful story. But I thought at one time that maybe I should move and leave. And I tried.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it.
Amen.
And, God always has a plan, and I can see why. Of course, an African-American neighborhood, like all neighborhoods in Montgomery County, stuck in one little place. But, when you're stuck, you depend upon God to
That's right.
keep you going,
That's right.
give you ideas. You don't die.
Yeah.
You don't forget about life. And so this community took care of its children, protected its children. And so I felt very protected growing up. I didn't know there was a problem in the world because that wasn't my business. That was the business of adults.
That's right.
And so I'm very thankful to have been, my father moved us back there and I grew up there.
Thank you, Pat. And I'm looking forward to diving a little bit more into the Lyttonsville history and the ties to the community and recreation.
Yes.
Reverend Warner, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Unlike the lovely ladies to my left and right, I am an interloper from Philadelphia. Did not grow up here, but I tell people I've lived in Montgomery County all my life, but the first 30 some odd years of it were in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. And so we got to Emory Grove sight unseen in 1990. I moved down to take a pharmaceutical research and development position. I was a scientist then, but we had no idea where we had moved. We knew the physical location, but none of the history. Many of the people who live there now are exactly as I was when I came. We knew nothing about urban renewal. We knew nothing about camp meetings. We knew nothing about baseball there. We knew nothing about the Dewdrop Inn. We knew nothing about how connected the community that used to be really was, and how much there was a sense of mourning among the people because of the loss of that community. So I'm now pastor. I've been pastor of Emory Grove United Methodist Church for 12 years. And now we no longer live in Emory Grove proper, but I've had the blessing of being able to peel back the historical onion, and every new layer just exposes something really fascinating. The good news for me is that I grew up in a community where if you had taken Emory Grove and moved it 150 miles north, it was the community in which I grew up. And that reality is an American reality for African Americans. All of us grew up in a town like this somewhere. So I think everything I've done coming to this present moment has prepared me for everything that's going on there now. So I'm glad to be here.
That's right. Yeah.
And LaTisha.
I am LaTisha Gasaway-Paul. I am 5th generation descendant of William Dove. I am a warrior for Scotland. My great-great-grandfather purchased 36 acres of land for $210. And I have found it my mission and calling to continue to tell his story. What he did is it's exceptional to me, phenomenal. Just thinking about the legacy that he left behind for generations to come. Yes, he planted that seed, and it's our work and obligation to make sure we continue to tell the story of Scotland, tell the story to make sure that we continue to have victories. There are a lot of barriers that we've overcome. There are a lot of challenges that we can still continue to face. But he did the work, and it's our job to maintain and continue the legacy that he left for us.
Yes, and I always love your passion, and we're so excited to have the three of you
Thank
here
you.
today. This month, is an important month we honor and recognize Juneteenth.
Mhm.
And that's why we wanted to bring you all together, representing 3 such historic communities, Lyttonsville, Emory Grove, and Scotland,
Yeah.
to have some conversation about that importance in the African-American history.
Mhm.
And so tell us a little bit about the work that you are doing to preserve that history and recognize it in your communities. And LaTisha, let's start with everything that's going on in Scotland.
Well, you just said it. It's the Scotland Juneteenth Heritage Festival for me. We are the largest Juneteenth Heritage Festival in the DMV area, and it is making sure we educate and preserving our history. Last year, we gave funds to raising money for Scotland Emmy Zion Church and 5 other historical communities and nonprofit organization. One of the organizations actually was Emory Grove, so I'm excited about that. Very excited about that. But we're bringing communities together. We're uniting, and it's a community effort for everyone to come out, raise awareness, not just for Scotland, but making sure we're talking about Lyttonsville. We're talking about Emory Grove. We're talking about Stewarttown. We're talking about Tobytown, because at the end of the day, our stories are the same. But we have to make sure that we're changing things going forward. We can't do anything about the past now. However, we can impact the future by being a voice. And that's exactly what the Scotland Juneteenth Heritage Festival is. It's a fundraiser to making sure that we are providing opportunity to those not just in Scotland, but other organizations throughout Montgomery County.
Yes, and Reverend Warner, tell us a little bit about your church impact and everything that's going on in Emory Grove.
Yeah,
and
I
the
think most
history.
of what I'm going to say today is rooted in history. So at some point in time in this county, there were more than 40 of these foundational communities around. There aren't as many now for a number of reasons. But one of the remarkable things, and there are many, about how the slave descending African Americans lived, and to some extent we still try and live today, is that we all supported one another.
That's right.
Emory Grove was the epicenter for African American camp meetings in the Great Methodist Camp Meeting movement. And so for nearly a century, every August, everybody, not just in Montgomery County, but all across the Mid-Atlantic would come to Emory Grove for this massive camp meeting. You would bring your pots and your pans and your dog and your kids and hang out at Johnson Park during the month of August, and worship would be the center.
That's right.
Reconnecting and fellowship with one another. There would be baseball was a big activity. All that was happening in Johnson Park. So when we heard a few years ago about what had happened to Scotland Church, we, just as a matter of tradition and connection, figured out what we could do to help. And so we dove in to do some work in fundraising with them. But at Emory Grove, we are very steeped in liberation theology. So we're preaching as if Black History Month is every Sunday
right.
there. So we live in this reality every day. It's not just Juneteenth.
Yeah, it's certainly definitely important to recognize and acknowledge it's not just one month, it's
That's right.
every day of the year.
That's right.
And Pat, tell us a little bit about Lyttonsville and everything that your team is doing.
Well, to preserve the history of Lyttonsville, we have undertaken a project to create a museum
Yes.
in the rec center. We're bringing in former residents who had to move when urban renewal came. And of course, they understand the roots and the beginnings and what we went through. So it's been a fun project, but also it makes us dig to really preserve that which we know about and before us. And I think that I guess you would say we are survivors.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have everything in life in order to survive or in order to be successful. You just need to know that you are here for a purpose. And our parents raised us that way. They were looking towards the future. And they were going through the present, and they knew what the past was. But that wasn't our business. Our business was looking to the future. So we want to preserve the history of the families there, the property, how it came to be, and the name of it, that we called it. Wasn't the legal name, but the name we called it and what it meant. And so we're taking this on, and we've got help from some of the historians here in Montgomery County who are giving us the clues as to where we can find that history. And every week something new pops up or a new picture of some kind. And I can remember my grandmother mentioning names of people that she knew and I didn't know. And here's someone last week sent me a note asking about who knows this lady.
Yeah.
And I said, well, nobody, and no one knew. But I said, my grandmother knew, and she used to talk about it all the time.
Mm.
So, stuff like that, we need to go back and remember these people and to remember they went through hard times.
Yeah.
But it didn't touch me as a child because they weren't looking back. And they wanted to build on what they had experienced so that it would never happen again.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Very powerful words
Yeah.
there. Thank you. You touched a little bit, on connection and talking to each other and collaborating. And I want to bring in this piece now, right? Some people might be listening, wondering, well, inside recreation, why are we talking about this on this podcast? And it's because of the collaborative work that we're doing in these communities. And you mentioned the recreation centers, the Gwendolyn E. Caulfield Recreation Center, for our listeners who may not make the connection, right, is where you are collaborating and doing some great work. So talk a little bit about that relationship with the recreation center.
The center got its name in 2000 as Gwendolyn Caulfield, and it was named because she was an activist in the community, but also she was she ran the night school at Rosemary Hills Elementary School, and she had a program there with international people. They had international parties, and she loved to cook and things like that. So she was well known, to the people in the Rosemary Hills and in Lyttonsville. So they named the center after her. The center was built to reach out to not only our community, but it was built as a regional center to incorporate people from Bethesda, because we're only 4 blocks from Bethesda, and to take in folks in the other surrounding communities. It's been a successful place to come. The directors that we've had there work with the children so that they act as though they should and not the way they want. There's something for everyone there. The seniors, the children in the school, for people who want to have reunions.
Yes.
And all kinds of activities there. So, and our National Night Out is a major event there where we can invite 4 other communities with us to spend that time giving respect to our law enforcement agencies. So it's been a real outreach at that center. And the facility itself is very attractive. And there are times such as we lost use of it when COVID was around because it housed homeless women. So we had to wait, until we got it back. But now that it's back, we're continuing on, and we're going to have this museum to talk about our story.
Wonderful. Yes. Community. That's what we want our recreation centers to be for and all about. So it's wonderful to hear you say that. LaTisha, let's talk about, the Bette Carroll Thompson Scotland Neighborhood Recreation Center.
Because when it comes to
talking about community, that one is really located for the community, in the heart of that community.
And we utilize every aspect of it. The Bette Carroll Thompson Recreation Center. It's named after my cousin, the late Betty Thompson. I watched her work. I watched her advocate for the Scotland community, getting a new recreation center. Meetings after meetings she held at the community center. Around the clock, I seen her work. I seen her speak. I seen her go pick up people, say, come, let's go. And I was one of them. There was never a dull moment where she was not advocating for Scotland. And I hope I represent her well by making sure I continue to speak on Scotland and her legacy, because her shoes were so big, and I'm not sure anyone can come follow behind her and fill them. She did that much work. And the partnerships that the recreation have, because it's open door. It's open door. It's the hub of it's the cornerstone of our community. I have meetings. I have Scotland Juneteenth Heritage Festival meetings at the Recreation Center. We talk about Scotland being the hub. If there's an event of emergency, where do you go? You go to the recreation center. If the electricity go out, if there's a storm, if there's a bad storm or weather related, where do you go? You go to the recreation center. The recreation center is our safe place. It provides information. And then you give us a wonderful director, Ronald Martin. In addition to that, he's the bonus because he is advocating for our children. We're attending meetings. How can we make betterment for Scotland? How can we bring betterment for Scotland?
And I'm so glad you mentioned the hub. That center was one of the first county projects of resiliency
absolutely.
hubs.
The resiliency hub, it was the first community. We have the solar panels, you know, if the electricity go out, we have the refrigerators for the elderly. And in Scotland is very important. I just want to say this because our homes were built in the 60s. So all of our homes are not ADA compliant as far as the sidewalks and everything. However, it is ADA compliant at the recreation center. And there's multiple ways to get inside, which is very important. So when that center was built, it was built thinking about the elderly. It was built thinking about the children. It was built thinking about how you can serve the community. And that's very important for me.
Yeah, it's so important for us to be accessible and inclusive to everyone.
Yeah.
In the Emory Grove area, we have the Upper County Community Recreation Center as well as the outdoor pool. Let's talk a little bit about that location and partnership.
So yes, the Emory Grove story is a little different in this way. Emory Grove was the first example of urban renewal in our county. And it was very poorly planned and even more poorly executed. It was just a disaster from top to bottom. And so the end of it was that people were displaced, not only just displaced from their communities, but literally lost money. They paid, they sold their houses for about 10 cents on the dollar, as it turns out. And so there was a very, very bad taste about urban renewal. One of the products of the urban renewal was a brand new shiny recreation center and pool that nobody really asked for, right? But here it was. So all of the goals that REC has tried to meet in establishing that recreation center, I'm sure have been met. But because of how that center arrived, there's still a bad taste in the mouths of people. So it is not used as much by the folks who are historical Emory Grovians. I'm creating a term now. Largely, and also because some of them just aren't there anymore, right? They were displaced. But we have vision for what that community center can be because every community needs a place where people connect. Every community needs real, authentic opportunities to have recreation. Johnson Park is such a big historical place. It's right adjacent to it. And as we imagine in the development of the 550 new houses we're developing there, what the new community will be, we're trying to make sure that that recreation center is at the center of it, as much as our church should be. So we're excited about what it can be. It certainly needs a refresh. And so we are doing the advocacy to make sure that happens. We don't know when that will happen, given the CIP process. We don't need to get into that today, but we're looking forward to something new that is developed by the people rather than just something the government put on the ground there.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing. Talk a little bit about the future, right? And so, to kind of bring us all together at the end of our conversation today, I'd love to talk a little bit about the hope for the future and your continued work in preserving the history of these historic Black communities in Montgomery County. I'll open it up. Whoever wants to take that one first.
Well, we didn't want the purple line. We didn't want the purple line at all.
Sure.
But we have an international community, and once people buy in our community, they don't usually leave. They stay until a job takes them away or something. The community is international community of all cultures. And as a result of the purple line and not having all plans, in cement, as they had told us, they found they didn't need a little piece of land that they were going to use for something else. And so they gave it to us so that we could have a park. And now we're going to have a park. And that park is not only going to commemorate the community with history in the park, but it will also talk about the evolution of relationships of communities around us. And it's not going to be so much of a recreational park because it's relatively small, and we do have a large park at the rec center. But it will be a park that will commemorate some of the future, and certainly talk about, it'll be a place where people can meet and talk and greet and get to know each other in an informal setting. So, what turned out to be sort of not too good an idea, somehow God knows what to do.
Yes,
and that piece of property now, we're looking forward to. The planning department has planned a gorgeous park for us. And we're just waiting now for the Purple Line to give it up so that we can go to put the plan in and bring people together.
Reverend Warner, anything about your thoughts for the future?
Well, so we are immersed deeply in a new Emory Grove. I started pastoring at Emory Grove 12 years ago. For the last 7, having discovered that there was a certain malaise in that congregation that I could not just identify and put my finger on, through a series of meetings, and it took a lot of time to build enough trust for people to unveil what the realities are. Turns out that the people there are grieving the loss of community based on urban renewal. And as I continued to seek to lead, we began asking questions about the future. What does God want us to do? What's the purpose of this church? And what emerged was just something scarily large and really unexpected. What emerged for us is to rebuild the community. We've lost it, let's rebuild it.
That's right.
And so the vision emerged to rebuild a community that had the ethic of the old one. That is, every child was raised by every adult. No one locked their doors because it would have been an insult to your neighbor. There was always something to eat, and if you couldn't find it on some farm or whatever was growing on the street, simply knock on the door. Somebody was going to put a plate of food in front of you. Right? It was just that kind of a place. But in any case, let's build a community with the ethic of the old one that would serve to repatriate the generations who have not been able to own a home since then. And to include the vast number of new Americans in our community into that community in affordable home ownership. Our goal as a church ministry was not just to provide housing, but to provide housing that advanced people's opportunity for economic development through home equity in this case. And so for the last 7 years, we've been at that business, and God has blessed it. Central to that is going to be a new recreation center. And so we're imagining it. We're reinserting a modern version of what recreation looks like for this community based on the history of the old. So the location of this recreation center is marvelous in that it is directly adjacent to Johnson Park. We think that recreation center has a little bit too much land, and so we want to expand or move the border a little bit so that the park has more space to place amenities there, because we don't see it as rec or parks. It's just Johnson Park that belongs to the community for us. Literally, when I walk the path through the rear of it with Emory Grove members, they said, "I used to live here," as we walk by. So they own that land in their hearts, and so if we think of it that way. But to connect it to a new baseball field and a new Little League, and to imagine a new swim team that looks like the United Nations in that pool, which is a little underutilized. All those things are very, very tantalizing and exciting to us, and we're looking forward to that future. We just hope we can do the level of advocacy it will take to make sure that happens financially.
Yeah, advocacy is certainly very important. And we always want our community members to advocate for exactly what they want to see out of our recreation programs and facilities.
Well, let me say, first and foremost, continue my partnerships with the Recreation Department.
Perfect answer.
Because along with myself, my sisters, Teresa Gasaway-Gleaton, Latrice Gasaway-Johnson, like I said, the Recreation Department is a hub for where we do our back-to-school shoe drive, Black History, Scotland Juneteenth. things like that. When we are serving, we always partner up with the recreation department and say, hey, how can we get involved? Because we like those good, healthy, strong relationships. But what does future look like for me? It looks like what brings not just myself peace, but my descendants and those who have gone before me peace as well, because I know that they fought for certain things, and I want to make sure that the victory is won. We stand on faith, and that is reparation. We would like some land back. It all started with the land. Okay, 36 acres of land. We have less than 10 left. We would like some land back, and however that looks like, what that looks like, we're gonna have to figure it out, because I know that my soul is gonna be unsettled until we do. So I'm just not gonna just sit back and accept that. But we walk by faith and not by sight. Along the doors of Scotland Ami Zion Church, they opened up this year with our leader, Reverend Dr. Evelina Huggins, was continuing to praise the Lord and making sure that anyone who passes Seven Locks Road knows our story, because they didn't before. We have neighbors that didn't even know we were there. So we have a long way to go, but we've come far, and it's just making sure that the preservation of our history and our stories can be told, and our victories in Scotland, the community, and the church.
Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you.
That'll wrap it for us here at Inside Recreation. We'll look forward to chatting again next month.
This podcast is brought to you by County Cable Montgomery, your source for news and information from the Montgomery County government. Connect with us via cable, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for County Cable MoCo.